There my dog goes already. As soon as I turn the microphone on, he's got a bark. What's going on, Wolf? You excited for this press briefing? Doggo testing the mic. Yeah, you hear him yawn. He just jumped back here. Let me see if I can put him camera. Oh, chair. There he is. That's my co-pilot right there. My trusty steed. He's excited for the press briefing as well. See how our country's doing. I could make this bigger to show you. Hold on a second. Where is he? This one? Yeah, see this one. Ooh. There he is. What's going on, Tank? Yawn? Yeah, pretty much what I'm thinking too. Another hour of no questions being answered. Yeah, man. I'm pretty much thinking that's probably gonna be the same thing. Same thing we always go through. Man, I am caffeine deficient today. And don't forget, they're gonna be probably 45 minutes late. Anytime they schedule a briefing, they're always late every time. How am I doing today? Pretty good. Doing okay. I spent most of my morning working on a real estate calculator in Excel. So I can kind of like plug in numbers and see different price points. Eventually I'd like to buy a house instead of just renting for the entirety of my life. One day I'm going to buy a house. And hopefully, based off of what Jerome Powell was saying, these interest rates are going to go down and that won't cause the housing market to immediately skyrocket. I can kind of get in to where the prices are right now while also having declining interest rates and hopefully get a lower payment. But, you know, I'm kind of playing that game. I'm trying to like prep myself for that. So, yeah, I'm probably going to try to find a real estate agent that can hook me up with the MSL and I can plug in the numbers based off what these different agents are selling. So, yeah, pretty much been nerding out all day, I guess. But that's fun. I like doing that kind of stuff. Obviously, I have a finance channel. Flip back so we're ready. Make sure I got my volume on too, so we're not going to miss out. There we go. Live. Yeah, that sweet, sweet caffeine. So I see right now Republicans are obviously going to be launching a campaign hating on Harris's VP. Seems like the main thing that they're going with right now is the terrible state that Minnesota went through with the Black Lives Matter riots and how he didn't do anything. And I guess he actually admitted that he kind of failed at protecting his citizens. Heads up for owning house and land. If you plan to keep the house and land in the family indefinitely, then you can void the property tax by burying a deceased family member on the property if the county permits. So don't buy land or house in one that doesn't. So for me, man, I'm actually a veteran. So I shouldn't have to pay property taxes up to, I think, like $5,000 or something. I'm not sure exactly what Florida is, but for most single family houses that you're going to buy, I probably wouldn't have to pay property taxes. But with the caveat to that, insurance in Florida is fucking crazy. I've given up on buying a house. I'm more looking for a cheap rental and just saving money for my kids. Yeah, man, that's always an option too. Definitely. You don't need to buy a house. My thing is I want to try to aggressively pay it off. And I think if I didn't ever have a mortgage payment for the rest of my life, or at least just having this property, I think I'd be in a better position financially. It's more about looking at my budget and then saying, hey, I could knock this out and never have to pay that, on top of being a veteran and never having to pay property taxes. Insurance, yeah, I'm probably always gonna have to pay that, and it is really expensive, but it's gonna be less than combining all those things in my budget. Oh, Wolf, you're also a veteran too? So you know what I'm talking about. And Chadwin's he's a veteran too, so he knows what we're dealing with. Greg says Chris Wallace Fox called Psaki the goat of press secretaries. Propaganda spewer cringed. Jean-Pierre is just a terrible liar. I mean, yeah, is she a liar? But I get it. That's her job. Her job is to maintain the presidential image of the president. So I don't expect him to be fully truthful. I do expect details on situations that are happening. I do expect these journalists that are out there to press her, and once they press her, we kind of know like what the actual situation is. Just look at like Biden. We all know his health was in decline, and when the journalists were pressing him, you could pretty much see that she didn't have an answer for it. So it's kind of a given. I'm also paying back taxes I didn't know I owed until this year, thanks to the new IRS agents. Yeah, man, that stuff scares me, because I know we're all going to get hit with that eventually. I don't think you're alone. And it's going to be for something stupid. They're just going to send you some random bill. I actually got that. I was deployed. I had no way to pay these guys, and they just sent me a random check. They actually didn't send it to me. They sent it to my dad. They're like, oh, you got this letter from the IRS, like saying somehow I owed money, even though I didn't think that I owed money. But even if you try to battle it, you're going to get into this year-long battle of trying to prove that you don't actually owe this money. And at the end of the day, the IRS doesn't care. Half the time you call them, they don't even answer their phone. 87,000 agents. Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. Mine apparently went back every year to 2015 saying I owed, and then there are fees and interest on it. See, that's fucking ridiculous, man. And I'm sure the interest rate they're charging you is not cheap. I don't know. For something like that where they could say it's just human error, it's something you weren't being malicious, why should they charge you interest on that? I mean, I could see them claiming the taxes. You have to pay them, of course. But to charge interest on that is just stupid. I would feel better about it if this money was actually going to something useful, but I don't feel like it goes to anything useful. Yeah, I mean, we could want the IRS to be abolished, but I don't think it's going anywhere. It's going to stick around for a long time. They're going to get all of our monies. So I'm just trying to do everything I can to avoid paying taxes where I can legally. Don't sue me, bro. Yeah, I'm probably not in a position to buy a house right now. I'm just trying to get myself there. Trying to run the numbers, see where I'm at, different calculations based off of the down payments, and see what the actual mortgage payment would be. And actually, when I looked today, the interest rates were already going down. I think when I looked previously, they were around 7%, and I think now they're a little bit below 6%. Based off of the internet. I mean, you could apply for the loan, and for all you know, they're going to charge you more. But Leoncio says better start investing in some Bitcoin. I'm a big crypto guy. I like crypto for sure. I definitely have my Bitcoin. I wouldn't say I'm loaded in Bitcoin, but I definitely like Bitcoin. I'm not a Bitcoin maxi either. I have altcoins as well. I try to look at different projects that are being innovative, and then hopefully they will take off. But so far, I haven't made a lot of money in crypto. The most that I've made, honestly, in crypto is just from holding Bitcoin and never selling it. When I inquired about the time frame, which I thought at the most was 5 years, IRS told me the law was changed last to go back to 10 years. Of course, man. They wanna get their money. That's ridiculous. Like, you're supposed to keep records for 10 years. Come on. First they tax you on income, then they tax that same money at the point of sale. Then with vehicles, houses, and other high value property, they continue to tax that year after year. It is robbery. Yeah, it's definitely ridiculous. Yeah, Leon, my worst holding when it comes to crypto is probably XRP. That coin has not made me a lot of money at all. Bitcoin, definitely the highest. I got some Sologenic, some Corium, Ethereum, which has definitely made money. Man, I've had other things at different times, like Stellar. Just a bunch of different things. I think I've pretty much kept it to like Bitcoin and Ethereum and different XRP ledger coins now. I don't want to brag, but I have like 200 Doge coins. So man, I made fun of that. I was like, this Dogecoin is stupid. It doesn't do anything, which is true. I still believe it. The tech is just, it doesn't do anything. But that's the one that pumped last time for no reason besides hype with like Elon Musk and all that. So the person holding Dogecoin ended up being right because they made the most money. PNG, ABT, and Arrow. I think I might have heard of Arrow. As far as like newer altcoins, I haven't been looking too deep, I guess. This is why I say there should only be sales tax when there is an exchange being made, goods or services for money that can be taxed, and the government is incentivized to make goods and services affordable through deregulation to increase receipt of taxes. Well, Trump is running on a campaign to remove taxes from tips. So I guess that's a step in the right direction. I wonder if that counts for YouTube. Technically, they're like or not even just YouTube. Twitch, Kick, whatever you're using. If people are donating to you, isn't that technically a tip? It's kind of a gray area, I think. But I thought that was cool. A lot of hardworking waitresses out there that just give them their money. Stop trying to tax them on their tips. That's how I made a good amount of my money was off Dogecoin, and then I got crazy with the altcoins. You got lucky with that one. That's crazy. I couldn't believe how that was pumping. I was a little salty, I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, this one doesn't do anything, because I was like researching, trying to find different cryptos that were actually like partnering with banks and things like that. And then Dogecoin just moons out of nowhere, and it didn't do anything. But a lot of people got lucky. Republicans were trying to get rid of income tax altogether, get rid of the IRS. Pretty sure Trump is for it too. And the Democrats opposed it. So that's a good thing about Florida. There isn't any income tax. But you probably get charged any money that you made from that in just insurance on your home. P&G is Dex on AVAX. Okay, so it's like its own Dex. Arrow is on base chain. Utah is a right to work state. My mom was a waitress my whole life when I was younger. She got paid $1.23 an hour. She made a killing in tips, but her paycheck was only like 62. Yeah, I dated a waitress when I was younger, and she made a killing. Not from her paycheck. Her paycheck was just like a little extra money, you know, she would take to go out to eat or whatever. But when it came down to tips, she made a lot of money. Definitely more than I was making at the time. Yeah, waitresses make good money. Especially if you can get into a upscale restaurant. Now, the girl I was dating didn't. She was in an upscale restaurant. She was working at it's like a burger place. What do they call that? Big Boys. Yeah, Big Boys. You know, the guy that's like holding the hamburger. Yeah, she worked there and she made a killing. Small town too. Yeah, the downside of the more exotic, nicer places to live are often the regular natural disasters that occur here. Like, yeah, we just got hit with Debbie. Luckily, the area I'm in didn't really experience anything. A little bit of wind, some tree damage, you know, nothing crazy. But when you think of like northern Florida, there was heavy flooding, you know, people definitely died. And that's the trade off, I guess. I lived in Hawaii for a while, and surprisingly, no hurricanes, nothing. The weather was always great. The weather was definitely better than Florida. And I'm not even talking about all the rain that we get here in Florida. It rains like every day. But Florida's so hot. You can't even like go outside. It's terrible. Where Hawaii had that nice ocean breeze. You could walk around, you know, the rays weren't bad. It was definitely nice. At least the weather was nice. I didn't really like living there. Where are we at? 2:28. She was scheduled for 2 o'clock. Normally it takes her to about 45 minutes. I don't know why they just don't push the time back. Hey man, how's it going? It's going wonderful. I'm starting to get my caffeine levels up, so that's always nice. So what do you think they'll come up with a good plan or a good reason for Ukraine attacking Russia? Gonna be something Russia attacked them first, so they have the right to defend themselves, and their aggression went too far, or some BS like that. Meanwhile, Palestine doesn't have the right to defend itself. Don't ask them that. This is why there needs to be different architectural standards in areas prone to those natural hazards. Concrete domes are a good option against high wind, tornadoes, hurricanes, and fires. Not sure there is any really good solution for flooding other than building and don't building in flood zones. Yeah. Awesome, man. Glad you're doing good. How you doing, man? Oh my God, how could you leave Hawaii? So everybody thinks Hawaii sounds great. It's really not that great. There are parts of the island that aren't completely swamped with tourists that are really nice. I'll give you that. But it's very small. So you pretty much do everything on the island within a couple of years. I never really felt like I fit in there. It's all about like Hawaiian culture, which is cool, but say you like bought a house there, you're never actually going to be Hawaiian. So it was a little weird, a little bit of kind of weird racism, although I didn't experience anything like super negative. But yeah, Wolf is right. Hawaii is very expensive, and for the house that I had, it was hard to justify the price. I mean, you had to look at the economy and say, yes, this is what the housing market is actually doing. But we had a 2-bedroom, like 2-story house, and it wasn't big at all. Everything in Hawaii is small. Were you called a haole? Not to my face, but yes, I'm sure. Many times. And I want to be clear, the people in Hawaii were super nice. There is that racism that I mentioned, but they were very nice people. The one thing I miss about being in Hawaii is that the people were so nice. They were so nice that it was actually annoying because they'd be driving and they'd come to like a 4-way stop, and you know how it works. You stop first, you go first, right? But the way it works in Hawaii is we both stop, we wave at each other, and they'd say, "Oh no, you go first." It's they call it driving with aloha, right? Because everybody isn't really on a schedule. It's just carefree life. But it becomes very confusing when multiple people are going to a 4-way stop and we're all just kind of like talking and hanging out. I want it to be efficient and move the traffic along, you know? But now that annoyed me being in Hawaii. So now I'm in Florida, and the moment the light turns green in Florida, people start honking at you like a bunch of assholes. So I'm like, man, Hawaii wasn't so bad. Everything has to be shipped into Hawaii, so everything ends up costing significantly more than on the mainland. Yeah, everything's super expensive. It's just stupid expensive. You pretty much know you're gonna spend a lot of money if you're gonna live in Hawaii. Just rent alone. My rent was almost $4,000, and we didn't have anything special. The cool thing about Hawaii, though, is there's pretty much no crime. It's like petty crime. People break into cars to sell things. people that can't obey the traffic laws or traffic flow properly are annoying. There's no need to be gracious, nice, or be rude. Just pay attention, follow the rules. Yeah, see that was my mindset at the time. Like we're spending more time waving at each other and letting each other go first and having that aloha spirit. We're slowing everything down. So it was annoying. But now that I'm in Florida and people drive like jerks, I'm kind of like, man, it wasn't so bad. And people in Hawaii are generally just nice like that. So there's a lot of good people there. Botter spotted in the chat. Yeah, this douche needs to get banned. Where is he? Yeah, add him to my block list. Yeah, Hawaii is cool. It's not terrible. It's just too expensive. Parking sucks in Hawaii because everything's so small. Like even the roads, you feel claustrophobic. The parking space, like everything is just tiny. Do you think they'll come up with a good reason for Ukraine attack? I think I already answered that. Or will that question be referred to the State Department? Oh yeah, that question's going to the State Department. That's the part I didn't read about that. Yeah, any questions involving attacks on Russia, definitely straight to the State Department. They did have a briefing today. I almost watched it, but I didn't this time. I've only watched one of them. My God, I hate when people honk on the horn the minute it turns green. That makes me furious. I've gotten out of my car multiple times. I've seen that so much here in Florida. It's really shocking. And you'd think with the amount of guns that are in Florida, people would think not to do that. But they still do it. I don't know how there's not a shooting every day because of people like that. Or even just like you're trying to make a right turn, you have traffic coming. Obviously, you're going to wait for the traffic. People behind you will honk, like trying to get you to go, like merge out into oncoming traffic because they want to get somewhere 5 minutes earlier, which not my problem. You should have gotten your car and left earlier. I don't care. Do you think Biden is just sleeping the rest of his term away? Absolutely. I don't. They talk about all these accomplishments that he's going to try and hit in his last 6 months or 5 months or so now. He's not doing anything. Even with the world, all this news that we're getting, he hasn't came out and addressed the people at all. The economy tanked. He didn't think to come out and address the people. All these assassinations. We had someone arrested by the FBI recently who was trying to assassinate Trump. But then again, he wouldn't even say that when Trump actually got shot, it was an assassination. But not even just Trump. Like even when the leader of Hamas got killed, he did there. Where was he? No speech, nothing. Not even a memo. We did see him when the hostages were released. He did go meet them, and he wandered on the wrong plane. But yeah, you think there would be? He'd be a little bit more in the public eye, being the president, but I guess not. Biden stepped away from the spotlight to avoid fallout for the assassination attempt. Idiot really asked Trump over the phone, how did you know to turn your head? Sounds guilty to me. Who knows, man? Who knows? I'm not saying Democrats tried to assassinate him. I'm not going that far, but it definitely was an assassination attempt. Even if you say it was a lone guy, somebody tried to kill him. It's obvious. And for them to come out and pretend like it wasn't an assassination attempt, well, then what was it? It was Pelosi. Probably. I'll say it. Democrats made it happen. Weaponized DOJ, weaponized FBI, CIA, SS. Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that way. I just want it to be called what it is. And I think later on they started saying it was an assassination attempt after they couldn't deny it. All I know is I don't have any incriminating info on the Clintons. That's good. You better keep it that way. I know a lot of people were predicting that Harris was going to pick Hillary as her VP, and that would have just been a flop of a ticket. That shooter should never have been able to get up on the roof, let alone take any shots. They let him do it after grooming him for it. Yeah, there's negligence. You can't deny that. That was sad. They did grill the head. She did step down, so she definitely got grilled. All right, we're at 41 minutes now. She's still not out here. Oh yeah. I switched my stream on Twitch over to just chatting instead of politics because there's a lot more people in just chatting. Hopefully that brings more people on Twitch. I'm definitely lagging over there. I think the shooter was Patsy. He was probably caught online looking at stuff he shouldn't have been. They proposed him and Scrabble as social media. She stepped down and then they left her alone. She gets to keep her pension and everything. It's no big loss. She'll get another position given to her by the Democrats. I mean, that's kind of how the government works. You were in the military, you know how the government works. Most people in high ranking places don't really get a whole lot of punishment. And yeah, she stepped down, but she pretty much got fired. Let's be real. They forced her to step down. Kind of like they forced Biden to step down. Did the market recover today? I didn't even look. Let me see. I heard that Japan brought their interest rates back down and that stabilized the market. But I haven't looked at it. Nah, it's still down a little bit. Like 0.5 on the S&P. Yeah, some of it's coming back though. Did hear about saying that Biden is a Mount Rushmore worthy president? Who said that? Who said that? Mount Rushmore? Really? That's news. If she had been impeached from her position, then there would have been consequences for her, but she was not. They should have just impeached her immediately, not ask, aka suggest, and she voluntarily stepped down. She will definitely get the golden parachute treatment for carrying out her orders. Yeah, and that's definitely most. I kind of expect that in the government. Pelosi's delusional, drunk, withered ass suggested it. I mean, the entire time they were grilling her in Congress, they were asking her to step down, or if she was going to step down. Do you plan to step down? And every time she said no, but by the following day, I guess they had convinced her that you probably should step down. You're facing some repercussions. But in her defense, she was probably drinking at the time. Yeah. When isn't she sloshed? I'm surprised she would say that. Let me see if I can find it. More. Oh yeah. Really big Fox News. Oh, come on. These stupid ads. There we go. Yeah, boom, right there. Nancy Pelosi suggests adding Biden to Mount Rushmore. Such a consequential president. Yeah, she had to have been drunk. After choosing to step out. So she's saying because he stepped down, he should be on Mount Rushmore? That's it? Pelosi denied leading any charge to oust Biden and instead remarked how he was at the top of his game before making his decision to leave the race. She suggested the choice was worthy of Biden joining the presidents on Mount Rushmore. These people are stupid. They are just absolutely retarded. Like, you gotta be kidding me. Do they really think we're that dumb? I just can't believe it. What's worse, the people saying this are half the American population believing them. So maybe we are stupid. What's the time hack now? We're looking at 2:50. So she's 50 minutes late coming out. Let me flip back and see what's going on. There we go. Now they're coming out. She should be out any minute. Oh, there she is. And yeah, switch back over. All right, so here's gonna be our press briefing for the day. Let's see what she has for us.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Come on. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you.
They have your favorite sign language
Ouija,
guy.
but you're not Ouija. Yesterday she said good afternoon. Anyway. And hello and welcome. No, it's 2:46. Not
Oh yeah,
evening.
I'm not late.
Okay, so we continue to pray for the people of Florida and those along the southeast coast that are being impacted by Tropical Storm Debbie, including those who have tragically lost their lives.
Yeah.
The president and his team continue to monitor the storm, and yesterday the president approved an emergency declaration request from Governor of North Carolina, which will provide additional resources to support the state's response efforts. This is in addition to emergency declaration requests the president has already approved from the governors of Florida, South Carolina, and Georgia. The Biden-Harris administration remains in close touch with officials from affected states, and FEMA has over 600 staff in the region to assist as...
I just want to say DeSantis was really on top of this storm. He was briefing from the EOC every day, had everything prepped. Obviously, you can't really prepare for something this devastating, but DeSantis was on top of this.
Needed. FEMA's National Response Coordination Center here in Washington and their Regional Response Coordination Center in Atlanta remain activated to further support the local response and coordinate federal efforts. Additionally, personnel from the DoD, HHS, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and U.S. Coast Guards have deployed and are prepared to support as well. I want to remind people out there that this storm isn't over yet, so we continue to urge everyone in its path to remain cautious, heed the warnings of local officials, and visit ready.gov, again, ready.gov, for tips on how to stay safe. And just a few more things that I want to add here. Today, the president recorded a sit-down interview with Bob Costa for CBS Sunday Morning. The full interview will air this Sunday, August 11th. Tomorrow, the president will call the governor of Hawaii and mayor of Maui County to commemorate the one-year anniversary of the tragic Maui wildfires and those who lost their lives. Highlight the progress that has been made to date and underscore the administration's continued support to ensure the long-term recovery of survivors and impacted communities. And tomorrow afternoon, the president will welcome the Texas Rangers to the White House to celebrate their 2023 World Series championship season. We will keep you posted on additional engagements in the days ahead. Finally, this is great. This is great
She means the full edited interview will air. Yeah, you're probably right.
news. Sung Min, I know this is your last briefing before you head out to maternity leave, so sorry, hopefully I didn't. She's like, She's like,
1 year anniversary planned arson of the Hawaii redevelopment for the rich. I don't know. I wasn't on that island. I was on Oahu. So I wasn't actually near any of the fires.
on her smartphone, but we wanted to congratulate you. This is coming from the press team, all of us. We wanted to congratulate you and wish you well. This is exciting time. And obviously, congratulations to you and your growing family. Anyway, and with that,
We got some questions.
Two topics, if I may.
I like to throw you guys off from my
Let's do it.
Go ahead.
First one on the economy. As you know, the stock market's up today, the U.S. stock market. So I was wondering if the White House thought the sell-off on Monday was just a blip, or if it signaled any sort of broader turmoil in the global economy ahead.
So, as you know, we're very mindful when it comes to the stock market. What I will say is, look, and I said this yesterday, and I'll say it again today. While there's been some volatility, our economy is indeed resilient. The data shows this. I ticked off the data, as you have heard me say before. Unemployment is still low at 4.3%, created nearly 16 million jobs, including more than 170,000 jobs per month over the last 3 months. Inflation is down 2.5%. Wages are up. They are rising faster than the prices for 14 months in a row. That's important. And GDP grew 2.8% last quarter, with consumers resilient and business investment up more than 5%. And expectations are for growth to remain solid this quarter. What we are going to continue to do, as people ask what we're focused on for the next 5 months or so, is making sure that we continue to build on those successes for middle class families, working families, and that is incredibly important. Let's not forget, we got to continue to work on capping prescription drugs. This is something that the president was able to do via the Inflation Reduction Act, where we are now able to negotiate. Medicare is able to negotiate with pharmaceuticals, and we expanded health care. So those are the things that we want to continue to do. Rebuilding infrastructure, businesses investing $9 billion in manufacturing and clean energy. Those are the things that we want to focus on, taking on price gouging. And while Republicans in the House are doing the complete opposite, they want to cut Social Security, which of course would raise costs for American families, and they want to give tax cuts to billionaires and corporations. That is not our focus. That's not what we agree on. And you have seen what we have done the last 3.5 years, and certainly we're going to keep building.
Starting to sound like she's kind of campaigning there.
On that. As it relates to your question, our economic team is going to continue monitoring developments. That's what they do, and keeping the president and the vice president updated.
And a follow on the prisoner swap last week. There were some exiled political activists and relatives of political prisoners in Belarus who say the fact that none of the political prisoners there were involved in the swap means they are just not a priority for the West. So can you give us any insight as to why none of the hundreds of the Belarusian political prisoners were not included in the exchange?
So let me just say that, and I think Jake has said this very eloquently, Jake Sullivan, our national security advisor, he said it here, he said it multiple times during interviews over the weekend. These are incredibly difficult decisions. These are not easy decisions to make. And, you know, this is a president that values human life, right? That values American citizens. And he has said from the beginning of this administration, and he has shown to get home innocent, wrongfully detained Americans back home to their loved ones, to their families. And you have seen this. I think, as you know, some folks might say, you've seen the receipts in delivering on that. And the work continues. The work continues. His team, the National Security Council, Jake Sullivan and his team, State Department, will continue to do everything that we can to bring home innocent Americans, wrongfully detained Americans. That continues to be a priority for this administration. And I can't speak to every case, but what I can speak to is the commitment from this administration that you have seen over and over and over again. It is not easy. This is not easy. We know what families are going through. We know how they're feeling. We know that they're missing their loved ones. And so we're going to continue to do that work. We're going to continue to do that work. Okay.
Does the president feel like it's time for the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates to sort of boost the
Here we go.
economy?
As you know,
Trying to buy a house, guys. Cut them rates.
we believe that the Federal Reserve have the right and should have their independence. Unlike the last administration, we believe in the independence of the Federal Reserve. We have been consistent with that. We continue to do that. The Federal Reserve will make their own monetary policy decision when they choose, and that is something for them to decide on.
Middle East, the president's been engaged in efforts to de-escalate tensions in the Middle East. Has he persuaded Iran not to retaliate against Israel?
Look, I'm not going to speak for what Iran will or will not do. It is up for them. That is their plans. They're going to speak to their plans. They have been very public about what their next steps are going to be in responding publicly. They've been very public about that. What we're going to do, and that's why we've shared the readouts that the president has had with Egypt, with Jordan, with Qatar, is that we're going to continue to have those conversations with our Middle East partners, Middle East leaders, and urge de-escalation. That's what we want to see. We want to see de-escalation, tensions de-escalated in the region, and that's our focus. Good.
Yeah, thanks,
Joey.
Karine. Yeah, thanks,
I know
Karine.
last time.
Yeah. Did President Biden watch last night's rally with Kamala Harris debuting her VP pick, Tim Walz? What was her impressions?
I watched it.
On that rally.
His impressions, you mean?
His
Yeah.
impressions.
Okay. Well, look, I don't have.
What is she? Why would they ask a question like this? Like Biden's gonna come out and say, "Oh no, I think it's a terrible candidate." Like, come on, they're just gonna give some BS answer.
Have anything to share on if the president watched or not. Look, I shared yesterday that the president spoke to Governor.
Were the rates under Trump lower? If so, take the Fed over again. Yeah, the rates were lower at the time.
Governor Walz yesterday and congratulated him. I think we shared that. Spoke to the Vice President Kamala Harris before the announcement was made. And so we've been very clear, and I think he put out a statement, and I
hate
think he
these
did
fluff
put out a statement
questions.
talking about how it was a great decision, going to be really mindful, right? Because I don't want to, there's a Hatch Act situation, but what I will say is just reiterate what the president said, is that he thought it was a great decision. He's known Governor Walz for more than 2 decades. This is someone who enlisted to serve his country at the age of 17, served in the Army National Guard for 24 years, was a high school football coach, was a teacher, served in Congress. Obviously now he's governor. This is someone who cares about working people, who cares about American lives. He grew up on a farm in the Midwest, and so his values is something that the president has always been impressed by. They have worked together on really key important issues that matter to the American people. And I think, if you go back to read his statement, you'll see exactly how the president feels about the vice president picking Governor Walz. Get Dan.
Thanks, Karine. What's the president's thinking about the bordering incursion that Ukraine is currently making into Russia? Has he got any concerns that could sort of
So
make
look,
the situation?
I can say this is that we are going to, obviously we've seen the reportings.
Here's your question right there.
So we're going to reach out to the Ukrainian military to learn more about their objectives. As far as the specifics on that, I would refer you to the Ukrainians to speak about their own military operations. That's where I would refer you to. But we are, generally speaking, as you know, we have been supportive of Ukraine as they are defending themselves against Russia's aggression. We think that is obviously important to do as we talk about
See, I told you she was gonna say that. They have the right to defend themselves.
democracy and freedom, and so we're going to continue to do that, and they are going to take actions, right? Common sense actions to certainly to protect themselves from these attacks. But as for the specific operation, we're going to reach out to them to see what their objective is and continue to stay focused. We are going to continue to stay focused on making sure they have what they need to defend themselves against Russia's aggression. Okay.
Thank you, Karine. You mentioned that you've seen the reports. I'm curious, was the White House made aware prior to?
No.
Okay. Is there any feeling that if there is evidence of U.S. supplied weapons or munitions being used in this attack, could it lead to further escalation?
I'm just not going to get into hypotheticals. Let us do our outreach to the Ukrainian military. I just don't have anything beyond
Absolutely.
that. We have to remember that obviously in this region, there's Russian troops there. They are in a region of Russia, and they're in that region attacking Ukraine. And so we can't forget that. But our policies, House policy has not changed. We're going to continue certainly to support Ukraine as they continue to defend themselves.
One pivot, if I may,
Sure.
the campaign trail. Today, Senator J.D. Vance has accused Governor Walz of stolen valor. I mean, obviously, military service is something that's very deeply personal to the president, given the service of his son. I'm curious, I mean, how is he reacting to these statements?
So look,
did what?
any specific attacks or comments, I would have to refer you to the campaign. I think when I was answering your colleague Joey's question about Governor Walz, I laid out, and you all have seen
Hold up,
his
I'm
bio,
gonna look that up.
right? This is someone who enlisted at 17 years old to serve his country. He was part of the Army National Guard for 24 years. This is someone who was a high school teacher, right? A high school coach as well, who grew up in a small town in the Midwest. And so I think his
Yeah, I didn't hear about this, but it says J.D. Vance accuses Tim Walz of lying about military service, stolen valor garbage. Yikes. Senator Vance accused Minnesota Governor Tim Walz of dodging his military service and misleading the country about his veteran status on Wednesday. Vance made the statement while taking questions from reporters at a campaign rally in Detroit. A reporter asked Vance about Walz's attempt to frame him as a member of the elite who attended an Ivy League school. I came from a family where nobody in my family had ever gone to law school. I grew up in a poor family. The fact that Tim Walz wants to turn it around into a bad thing, that I actually worked myself through college, through law school, and made something of myself, to me makes the American dream. And if Tim Walz wants to insult it, I think that frankly is pretty bizarre. Vance said before launching into an attack on Walz, and that's when I guess he accuses him of stolen valor here. As a Marine who served his country in uniform when the United States Marine Corps when the United States of America asked me to go to Iraq to serve my country, I did. I did what they asked me to do, and I did it honorably. When Tim Walz was asked by his country to go to Iraq, you know what he did? He dropped out of the Army and allowed his unit to go without him. A fact that he's been criticized for aggressively by a lot of the people who he served with. And I actually saw a lot of those videos too, where people were claiming he didn't go to Iraq. Yike, man. Oh, that's a cold hit, because they were really trying to sell him as a higher-ranking enlisted veteran. Damn, I know I got a lot of veterans here. I'm a veteran myself. I'm really just kind of taking that in. I wonder if it's true. Was he supposed to go to Iraq and he kind of just didn't go? We're going to have to fact check that, because this article here is from Fox News. I'm sure that's one-sided. But yeah, we need to look into that and see if that's true, because that's shitty if he didn't go.
His bio speaks for itself.
I did my deployments.
Speaks for himself. His
I'm sure y'all did too.
Speaks for itself, and I'm just not going to say anything beyond that.
On Israel and Hamas and ceasefire negotiations, the administration has said you're closer than ever. What are those final steps, and how is the president involved in the final stages?
So I'm going to be very mindful here and not negotiate from here. And obviously we have closed some gaps. You've heard us say this. Some important gaps, and we feel like we are, closer, as you just stated in your question. That was part of a readout from yesterday. Our focus is going to continue to have those diplomatic conversations with Middle East leaders on de-escalation and the tensions there in the region. Obviously, bringing in the ceasefire and hostage release deal to a conclusion. That's our focus. This is something that the president has talked about for some time now, and he and his team are going to continue to work around the clock to get that deal done. I'm not going to negotiate. I'm not going to get to specifics from here.
Calls that the president's making today?
So no new calls to speak of today, but the president continues to.
I honestly wasn't allowed to deploy when I was called. I was just a reservist, though, but I'm not claiming military privilege either. Exactly. So you signed up. You were there, man. You served honorably.
Obviously, he has been engaged these past couple of days with Middle East leaders. His team is continuing to engage as well with these diplomatic conversations. What we want to see is a de-escalation in the region. Those are the conversations that we will continue to have. And to your question at the top there is getting the ceasefire deal and this hostage deal to a conclusion. That's going to be our focus.
Secondly, if I may, Secretary Austin's decision to overrule the 9/11 plea deal has created some confusion over the legal proceedings. Was it a surprise to President Biden? Was he involved?
So this decision was made by Secretary Austin, and so you're going to have to go to the Department of Defense for anything more to share about that step, the step that Secretary Austin took. I will say this: the Secretary wrote in his memo, entry into a plea deal in the Senate is a significant decision, and on the huge range of important and complicated issues that the Secretary Austin, the Department of Defense, has to deal with. This is something that certainly they have a huge responsibility, and so because of that,
My commander knew I was going through a divorce, and he got screwed on his divorce when he deployed. Didn't want the same thing to happen to me. Well, that's a good commander, man. And just for the record, I don't have any like Iraq kicking in doors deployments either. But you were there. You did what was asked of you. Your commander told you you weren't going on this deployment, so you served honorably.
Certainly, Secretary Austin has the full support and confidence of this president, especially with active military prosecutions. And so I would really have to leave it there. This is a decision that Secretary Austin made, and that is
you do what the commander says.
That particular step,
that's the boss.
The Department of Defense would have to speak to.
Karine, last night Governor Walz said during the rally in Philadelphia, he praised the Vice President's leadership, but he also thanked her in particular for bringing back the joy to the campaign trail. Does the President share that assessment that Vice President Harris has returned joy?
So here's what I will say. Again, it's a campaign activity, but I'll say this more broadly, and this is basically repeating what the President said. He said the most important decision that he made in 2020 was picking Kamala Harris for his running mate, who obviously is now the Vice President. And he did so because he believed she could lead on day one. And he's incredibly proud of her.
We've heard this a million times.
He chose her to be his critical partner for the last 3.5 years, and obviously now in this transition period, if you will, because of her judgment, because of her leadership, because of her temperament, and because of her experience. And so what he has seen what we've all watched.
It was to the UAE, relaxation and money. Damn, that would have been nice. Yeah, I mean, I had some of those too. You put all your stuff in storage and pocket all your housing allowance and everything. So they're not bad, but towards, 5-6 months in, you start thinking, man, I really want to go back home. So that's the service right there.
And experience these past couple of weeks is exactly what he was hoping for. You think about the energy, you think about the excitement. That's what he wanted to see, right? He talked about unity. He wanted to bring the party together. So I will leave it there.
Has the President been briefed on...
See, that's the thing, Wolf. You went. You went on your deployment. We really got to see if he actually just didn't go on his deployment.
On this alleged Austrian terror plot,
I'm curious now.
In which there were a couple of arrests today of individuals who were planning to target Taylor Swift concerts in Vienna specifically. Is he aware of that?
So
They're targeting Swifties?
When I came out, I saw the reporting.
What?
I know that local law enforcement is taking the lead here. I just don't have anything to share beyond that.
And finally, you mentioned the CBS interview that the President did today. Is there anything else you can share about how he's spending his days since he didn't have public events yesterday or today? Anything else to share?
Well, you'll see him tomorrow, as I just mentioned. As you know, he's made several head of state calls this past couple days as it relates to de-escalating the tension in the Middle East. And he has been meeting with his senior team. I met with him, obviously, ahead of his interview today, and you'll see him tomorrow. And when we have more to share, certainly we will share that with all of you. As far as his schedule, we will do that.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Steve's question, also the leader of Hezbollah said yesterday that retaliation is coming. So despite the fact that the White House is being engaged in diplomatic efforts, do you believe at this stage that actually an attack by Iran and the proxies is inevitable?
What I can say is we're monitoring the situation. That's what we're doing. That's what I can speak to. Iran, Hezbollah, they will speak for themselves. Obviously, Iran has been very public about this. What we will continue to do is have these de-escalation conversation. We want to see a de-escalation in tension. You've seen the readouts. I'm sure you've read the 3 readouts that we put out this week. With the head of states leaders in the Middle East, and that's what NSC and other members of the president's team is going to continue to do. I just don't have anything to share. I don't want to get into, I can't speak for them. I don't want to get into any sort of hypotheticals from here, but our focus is very, very clear. Our focus is de-escalating tensions in the Middle East. That's what we want to continue to do.
Good questions. On the Palestinian issues, there have been documented cases of rape against Palestinian prisoners in Israeli detention. And it's been reported by Israelis, whether it's human rights organizations or others. Does the White House has raised these cases in particular with the Israelis, and what were the response?
So the reports of rape, torture, and abuse are deeply, deeply concerning. And we have been clear and consistent with Israel that it must treat all detainees humanely and with dignity in accordance with international law, must respect detainees' human rights, and must ensure accountability for any abuses or violations. Reiterate that we support an IDF investigation into allegations of serious abuse of Palestinian detainees by IDF soldiers. It is essential that the rule of law and due process prevail. That is what we want to see, and obviously we're going to continue to have those conversations.
And finally, what message does the U.S. send when you have powerful lobbies unseating 2 African Americans, congressmen and women, whether it's Jamal Bowman or now Cori Bush, because they criticize Israel? They've been labeled as anti-Semitic just because they criticize the conduct of the Israelis. So how can you project U.S. values to other countries when you see this nexus between money and lobbying influencing politics?
So I've not been covering these races. And I can't speak to what has been happening on the ground. It's not something that I'm going to speak to. What I can say is, more broadly, just as we do speak to when there is a primary election, we congratulate the winners of yesterday's primary elections. That's what we're going to do, and we want to be able to work on behalf of the American people with future congressional members, and that's what I can speak to, and that's where I'll stay.
Thank you, Karine. You mentioned the CBS interview that will be airing this weekend. What was the impetus for the president to decide to sit for that interview?
I mean, look, the president has always said that he wants to do interviews, speak directly to the American people. One way to do that is to do interviews with you all. And so that is something that he wanted to do, a sit-down interview. I'm not going to get into the specifics. You guys will see. They will promote, obviously, CBS will promote.
He's wanting to get across?
CBS interview.
The message for this president has always been the same, right? Which is he's going to do everything that he can to deliver for the American people, to work on issues that they care about, whether it's the economy, whether it's about freedom and democracy, whether it's about making sure that we lower costs. Those are things that the president is always very clear about. I'm not going to get ahead of the interview. He did an interview. He was happy to do it. And I think stay tuned. You all will see what his message is and what the interview was all about. But, we're hoping, obviously, we'll continue to.
Those CBS interviews, they don't let me stream. So I'll probably watch it, but they like to copyright strike folks. So that's probably not going to happen on my channel.
He'll continue to talk and take questions from you all in the next 5 months.
During that time, how is he thinking about using his executive authority to achieve anything left on his to-do list?
And appreciate the question. I'm not going to get ahead of the president on any potential executive actions that he might take on any important issue that matters to the American people. What I can say is he wants to build on the historic record that he has been able to lay out and deliver for the American people. That's his focus. I'm not going to get ahead of the president.
Has he spoken to Vice President Harris after last night's rally?
They definitely spoke, as we mentioned yesterday from here. The vice president called the president ahead of the announcement of her running mate, so they had a conversation. They speak regularly. They are partners in this, as you know, and have a close relationship. I just don't have anything to read out outside of that.
Has the president spoken yet to any of the U.S. service members who were injured this week overseas by Iranian proxies?
Yeah, we heard nothing about
Don't have any
that.
conversations to speak of but from the president. What I can say, just to give you all a little bit of an update, of the 7 U.S. personnel injured during the attack, 2 personnel have been returned to duty, 2 personnel are recovering locally, and 3 personnel have been evacuated for further treatment and remain in stable condition. Obviously, we wish them all a speedy recovery. If there is a call to speak to, we certainly will let you know.
I asked that because you're saying that the president is very busy every single day, obviously in the Oval Office and within the walls of the White House. And I know you're taking things day by day here, but can you give the American people maybe an expectation of how much or how little we expect to see the president out and about?
Just to get back to, let's just get back to the service members for a second.
Sure.
Obviously, we are wishing them a speedy recovery. They were injured. And so we have to give them some space and opportunity to get better, to get that treatment that they need. As the president, he's also the commander-in-chief, as you know, and he takes that incredibly seriously. So I just wanted to make sure, just want to make sure that I had a second to go back to that. As it relates to the president's schedule, public schedule, because I think that's what you're really asking me about, what his public schedule will look like. You'll see him tomorrow.
She's asking, where is Biden? We have not seen him.
There will be more opportunities. We have 5 months left here. There'll be plenty of opportunities, obviously, to see the president.
No, dude is coasting into retirement.
And certainly when we have events, public events to share and travel to share, as we normally do, we will do just that. Go ahead, Josh. No, go ahead, Josh.
Has he decided on how long he'll go to the DNC for?
How long? We're still working that out. And once we have more information, obviously, we'll work that through.
Has he spoken with the vice president about how he can best support her? In other words, is he giving her this moment, for lack of a better phrase, by doing more private events than public ones?
So, look, I think what you can expect is the president is going to be as supportive as he can to the vice president. I got to be mindful because a lot of this, obviously, that we're talking about is campaign activity. And they talk regularly. They talk frequently. So I'm probably just going to leave it there and not get too much into their private conversations. The president made this decision because he thought it was the right decision on behalf of this country. He thought it was the right decision to make in this moment. And he's very proud of that decision. He's very proud of the vice president. And he believes, again, as I stated before, that when he selected her in 2020 to be his running mate, it was the right decision at that time. And it was the right decision in moving forward with our country, the best decision that he made. And he's incredibly proud of
She said this like 4 times already.
her. He believes she has the experience, the judgment, the temperament to do the job. And I think that's what we're seeing right now.
As a more minor point on a different subject, is there any update you can share about the proposed purchase of U.S. steel by Nippon Steel, Japanese company?
I know that's something that you care about a lot, Josh.
For quite a while.
CFIUS
8
Review.
months, something like that.
CFIUS Review, my favorite acronym. Don't have anything to share. As you know, CFIUS is independent, and they're going to make their decision when they're
The
ready.
administration's position, you're waiting on that?
It's under review. That's what I can do now.
Thank you. When the president dropped out of the race a couple weeks ago, you talked about how it presented an opportunity, more time to perhaps pursue different priorities now that he's not running for re-election. Have you all come up with a list of what that's going to look like, any top to-do items that he wants to get done now that he has a little bit more time?
So, look, we certainly will have more to share on that. What I can say is that, as you know, and you've heard me talk about this, the president was able to pass some in a bipartisan way and some with only Democrats only, right?
They've been asking her this question for the past 2 or 3 weeks, and every time she does not have an answer.
If you think about the Inflation Reduction Act, if you think about CHIPS and Science Act, which is done in bipartisan way, obviously, bipartisan infrastructure legislation, the American Rescue Plan. Those are important pieces of legislation that has allowed him to build an economy, rebuild an economy that's the strongest,
Oh,
leading
yikes.
economy that's the strongest in the world, really deal with healthcare, lowering costs for Americans, whether it's healthcare, energy, prescription drugs, you name it. He has been able to do that work. Now there's still a lot of implementation to be done. He wants to see, for example, when we think about the infrastructure law, we want to make sure that those projects gets moving, the Chips and Science Act, bring manufacturing back here to the U.S. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done just on the stuff that he's been able to get done as it relates to the next 5 months, lowering costs, building homes that are affordable, and continuing to strengthen the economy. Obviously, we'll have more specifics, more things to speak to in the upcoming, hopefully, weeks. But there's a lot to think about. There's a lot to think about for sure, and how to continue to deliver for the American people.
Plan on how you're going to lay that out? Is that going to be
Don't
some
have
kind of
anything. Don't have anything to share at this time. I don't have anything to share.
Thanks.
Tune in. Head in.
Thanks so much, Karine. I had two questions. One is about Rahm Emanuel in Japan. He chose not to attend a memorial service in Nagasaki because Israel was not invited. And I'm just curious if that is a sort of broader policy from the White House, or whether that's sort of a one-off, or if there's anything that you could sort of speak to in terms of that, whether it's a kind of a larger boycott that the administration is.
So, and I appreciate the question. I wasn't tracking this particular matter, so I want to go back and see exactly what occurred. And I know you're laying out what you're reporting here, but want to go back. I don't want to talk about a change of policy or anything like that without talking to the team.
Okay. And then just one other one. Former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi in a recent interview said that the president decided not to run again, in part because of, well, entirely, I suppose, because of a lack of, quote, stamina to serve for another 4 years, unquote. And I wonder if you could comment about that. Is that your sense of why he chose not to serve? I'm not sure where the disconnect might be between the speaker and the president. I know that they're, as you said yesterday, very close.
Yeah, I mean,
I thought they were going to bring up the Mount Rushmore thing.
look, he respects, again, his good friend, Speaker Pelosi, former Speaker Pelosi. What I can say is, speaking for the president and knowing what the president, his decision, it wasn't certainly not because of that. It wasn't because of lack of stamina. It was, as I just stated multiple times, unity, bringing the country together. That's what he wanted to do. It wasn't about him. This was about country first. That's what the president, that's how he has basically moved forward with his career this past 50 plus years. And that was his decision, passing along the torch. This is stuff that he said in the Oval Address, in the letter, in statements that you have seen from him. And he's been very, very clear from his perspective as to why he wanted to make that decision, but it certainly was not about stamina. He believed that he could have continued to do this job another 4 years.
I don't
That's
know
why he
much about
decided to
Cuba.
run for re-election.
Couldn't
but
tell
I
you.
would let the speaker speak for herself. I'm speaking for the president and what I know.
Here.
Go ahead, Karen.
It's Karine. It's my understanding that the Domestic Policy Council had a meeting on Monday with advocates on the topics of establishing a U.S. Commission on Reparations and U.S. Commission on Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation. I know I asked about this topic last week, but is there anything the White House can share about this meeting? And then also separately, I spoke to one of those advocates who expressed that many of them are just really frustrated with the lack of progress and urgency that they feel is not being happening on this particular topic, especially because some of their biggest champions in Congress will no longer be in Congress, including the death of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee and the defeats of Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman, and Barbara Lee will also not be in Congress. Does the White House understand, or what is their response to that frustration?
Look, I'm not going to read out any private meetings from here, and that's something that we do. So not going to do that. But we do believe that Congress has the power to study reparations. We've talked about this multiple times in here. That is our belief. And continuing and seeing reparations and the continuing impact, obviously, of slavery, in addition to supporting an effort in Congress to study reparations. President Biden is actively delivering for the Black Americans, for the Black community, throughout the 3.5 years of his administration, as I talk about these different pieces of legislation that we've been able to get through, equity has always been at the center of that, making sure we don't forget any communities that are normally left behind. And so we want to make sure that our commitment continues to be the advancement of racial equity. That's what we want to see, support for undeserved communities. Make sure, again, as some communities have been left out, we don't want to see that. We want to see, for example, an economy that's built from the bottom up, middle out. And we have seen some historic wealth gains for the Black community. That's because of the actions that this administration has taken. And we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue anything that we're moving forward on. We want to make sure that not just Black American community, but also all communities, we want to make sure that we deliver and don't leave anybody behind. But the study of reparations, we believe, and will continue to say this, is something for Congress to do. Good, sir.
Thank you. A China question. So the Chinese government website has added a new section on Taiwan independence punishment that encourages people to report Taiwan independent supporters. Some are calling it witch hunt. Does the administration agree?
I mean, look, our policy has not changed. It will continue to be that, the one China policy. You've heard us say this many times. I can't speak to this new development that you just laid out, but our policy has not changed. We will continue to be consistent from here. Okay,
great. Thank you.
What a crazy way that they live over there. Could you imagine your neighbor just rats you out? He's a Taiwan supporter. Next thing you know, you're locked up. That easy.
The new Title IX went into effect last Thursday. As you know, it's faced lots of lawsuits. Many governors say they're not going to even follow it. So there's that angle of it. But critics say the new Title IX hurts women and girls. For starters, they say it will destroy women's sports by allowing biological men to compete directly against women in sports. Does the president share that concern?
So let me just say, so there's still ongoing litigation, so I would have to refer you to DOJ, but more broadly, every student deserves the right to feel safe. Every student deserves the right to feel safe in schools. That's what the rule is all about, strengthening and restoring vital protections that the previous administration took away. And ending violence against women and girls has been a priority not just for this president as president, but certainly during his Senate years, throughout his career. And that is something that he is has been always very focused on. This is an important step in an ongoing work to end campus sexual assault. That's what we want to see. And I cannot speak any further to the litigation. I'm not going to get ahead of any of that, so I'm just going to leave it there.
How do you address the concerns that the new regulations, the new Title IX rewrite, will allow men, biological men, into women's locker rooms?
Look, I want to be, again, really careful here. It's an ongoing litigation. I'm not going to say anything beyond that.
Does the president have any concerns about this? Is he going to pull it? Is he going to pull the Title IX?
It's an ongoing litigation through DOJ. I'm just not going to say beyond it. Go ahead.
Hey, great. Follow up on Cori Bush. She gave a speech last night after the results came in, and she said to AIPAC, who spent heavily against her, "I'm coming to tear your kingdom down." Does the president have an opinion on that statement?
So, look, the president has always been very clear, and very recently after the assassination attempt of the last president, about lowering rhetoric, right? Lowering political rhetoric, and the importance of doing that. It is important that we be very mindful of what we say. This kind of rhetoric is inflammatory and divisive and incredibly unhelpful. Look, we're going to continue to condemn any type of political rhetoric in that way, in that vein. And so it is important to be mindful in what we say and how we say it. But we cannot have this type of inflammatory, divisive language in our political discourse. Not now, not ever.
And quickly on the VP decision, you said a couple times that he spoke to the vice president about her decision. I don't expect you to say what he counseled on, but did he give her advice?
I appreciate that, thank you.
But did he say who he thought she ought to name as her vice president?
So what I can say is, and he said this himself, that he had talked to her, I think like over a week ago when he was asked about this particular VP decision. The vice president sought the president's advice, and you know, she certainly the vice president welcomed his advice. I just don't have anything beyond that, but let's not forget they're critical partners, they're strong partners in this throughout the past 3.5 years on important different issues that matter to the American people. So not just this pick, but obviously throughout this past 3.5 years. But she sought his advice, he offered the advice, she welcomed the advice, and I'll just leave it there. I know I gotta wrap up. Go ahead, John.
Thanks a lot, Karine. Can you just clarify an answer that you gave a little bit earlier? Yeah. It involves that revocation of that plea deal for the 9/11 defendants, including Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. Did the Secretary of Defense give a heads up to the President, the Commander-in-Chief?
This is a decision that he made. He made on his own.
I understand. Can I just
I think that answers the question.
Well, it doesn't, because I want to know if...
For you, maybe, but go ahead.
For you, maybe.
I just simply wanted to know whether the Secretary of Defense gave a heads up to the Commander-in-Chief about his decision.
This decision was made by the Secretary. This was his decision to make. This is his decision to make. This was his decision to make. This is not something that we are involved in. The President, what I can say is the President has the full confidence of the Secretary. It was his decision to make.
I'm not doubting whether he has confidence or not in the Secretary of Defense. Just simply wanted to know, but I'll move on. Wanted to ask you another question that just was out there on social media, and maybe you can reply to it. The former president has made this suggestion that the current president may still want to be the Democratic presidential nominee. Put that out on social media. Does the president, I see your reaction, that's why I want to ask you this. Does the president in any way lament his decision to drop out of the race?
The president is proud of his decision. He's proud of his decision. Again, we had nothing to do with the 9/11 plea deal reversal. We had nothing to do with it. This was something for the Secretary to make, and he made it. The President has full confidence in the Secretary. Thank you, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, she's leaving now. She's like, screw this. Get me out of here. But there it is, everyone. That is your White House press briefing. I'm going to run. And then I'm probably going to come back and check and see if anything else is going on today that I might want to stream. So I'll see y'all.